Now, I can exclusively reveal that an Al-Qaeda terrorist who stabbed a police officer to death and plotted a major poison attack in Britain could be out of prison by Christmas. Kamal Borgas entered Britain illegally in the back of a lorry in 2000. He was an Al-Qaeda sleeper agent. He plotted a mass poisoning that could have indiscriminately killed as many men, women and children as possible. He planned to spread ricin, the poison, around London. He even wanted to smear it on people's car door handles. Borgas was jailed initially for 17 years in 2005 for that plot, but in 2003, he was actually jailed for life with a minimum of 23 years for murdering Detective Constable Stephen Oak, who was conducting a raid on the house that he happened to be in. Now, here's another detail for you. Where was that house? It was in Crumpsall, in Manchester, exactly the same area where this happened. What we can now reveal is that Borgas has been allowed to seek parole. Remarkable, isn't it? What a massive, massive act of national self-harm. But I can actually reveal another devastating jihadi story for you right now as well. Ibrahim Roger Anderson, a ginger-haired Muslim convert from Luton, was jailed for trying to drum up support for Islamic State, as well as disseminating ISIS execution videos. He actually told an undercover police officer that he wanted London to be under the Islamic State flag. What I can tell you now is that he will be released in the coming weeks. It's happening. In a report by the parole officials, they said this: Mr. Anderson had undertaken an accredited programme to address extremist offending and ways of disengaging. Mr. Anderson engaged well with this and completed all the required work to a good standard. The panel was told that all necessary work in a prison environment had been undertaken, and Mr. Anderson had also been working with an imam to help him better understand his faith. 2 witnesses supported Mr. Anderson's release. A 3rd witness supported the release with a degree of caution. In this case, protective factors which would reduce the risk of reoffending were considered to be the support Mr. Anderson has from professionals and from his family. He's been seen to be motivated to do well in the future and to work openly with those involved in the case. Last week, we had a jihadi terror attack. Yesterday, I revealed to you that what appears to be a UK-trained member of the Afghan Special Forces is working as a human trafficker in Calais, posing with guns, with money, and doing the single-finger Islamist hand gesture. One card-carrying member of ISIS is going to be released in weeks now, possibly to the very same community where he became radicalised in the first place. And the lunatic failed asylum seeker who wanted to kill as many of us as possible with poison is now also up for parole. What the hell are we doing?
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just live in credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, You need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward. And that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
Let's get thoughts on my panel. We've got political commentator Chloe Dobbs, Tory peer Lord Bailey, and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Sean, starting with you on this. How are we even considering releasing some of these people?
There's three things to be said here, as always. Firstly, I'll be the first to tell you that the parole board's job is very difficult, but this particular case isn't. Don't do it. It's that simple. But it goes to a deeper fundamental challenge. People seem to think in our rehabilitation services that a couple of weeks with some nice imams and some nice, well-meaning officials means somebody will change their world view, which they were prepared to murder over. I simply do not buy that. And the idea that you'll sit in prison and do the work properly, of course you will, because you want to leave prison. Will you change your ideology? I'm sorry, I don't sense that to be the case. And this means when you leave the public deeply exposed. The third thing to say, the really important thing to say, if either of these two men, one is yet to be released, let's see, but if either of these two men, if they are both released, does anything in the public eye, it will put the parole situation under real serious scrutiny. They need to think twice here. These men have done extreme things and should be treated in an extreme way, not as your general, normal, average prisoner.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this to your attention. It's not just because it's shocking, but I also want to make you aware that we are about to, and indeed we have already had in some cases, a wave of jihadis like these released, because there was a big time period about 20 years ago where we arrested a load of them and we put a load of them away, but they were jailed for about 20 years and were up for parole, which is now. And it appears that we are giving them parole. We've had the bloke who wanted to blow up the London Stock Exchange released quite recently. The judge wished him well on the way out. And now we've got a bloke who wanted to indiscriminately poison as many people as possible who could be free by Christmas, Chloe.
I mean, it just seems like we're not taking the security threat in this country seriously at all. We've just been looking at the breaking news about the issues with China with regards to our national security. Now, that's perhaps not terrorism related, but I think it just shows this general picture at the moment where we've got the highest, terrorism threat ever. We've just had an attack last week, yet the authorities don't seem to be taking it seriously. I'm sure that this news is going to be sending shivers down the spines of the victims, families, and the Jewish community after what happened just last week. Why on earth are we letting these people have parole? I'm sorry, but if you are someone who planned to murder potentially hundreds of innocent civilians in the name of a crazy jihadi ideology, you should be behind bars for life.
There's also other aspects to this, aren't there? So he lived down the road from where Mr. G had lived. Where will he be released to? Will he be released back to an area where they say he had historic connections? Are we about to, several days on from a terrorist attack in that community, are we about to release this guy who wanted to poison us all back to that same community? Can you imagine the scandal there? Well, I can, because the world seems nuts at the moment. The other aspect to this, Matthew, is that he came to Britain illegally in the back of a lorry in 2000. He was a failed asylum seeker and he wanted to try to kill us all. This has been going on for a very long time, hasn't it? It's like an act of self-harm as a nation.
Yeah, my instant reaction is the same as everybody else's, which is, great disgust that all these people did or were planning to do, and anxiety. I have to say, I think we have to let the parole board do its job, because we can't have politicians deciding. The parole board is completely independent. We can't have politicians deciding this. But maybe there's a case for the sentences themselves not being long enough in these sorts of cases, because then they would still be in jail if their sentences had been longer. Or, I was going to say, what is the status, his current immigration status? So hopefully, when he is released, whether that's on parole or generally, then the government will be looking to deport him if he's in this country illegally.
Well, he shouldn't be released. He should be deported. If it's at all possible legally to deport him, he should be deported immediately. If it isn't possible to deport him, we should be changing the law. Remember, the words sleeper agent were used. So if this man is sophisticated enough to come here illegally as a sleeper agent, I think he can bamboozle a few tests in jail.
Absolutely.
We are risking putting someone who's a professional terrorist back into our...
The problem is they will have to be released at the end of their sentences unless they've been charged with something else, because otherwise they're being held illegally.
They should release him to the country he came from.
Absolutely.
Well, he was also, at the time of his arrest, it was a long time ago, he was also... quite a formidable opponent to MI5. I was looking at this before I came on air today, and there are articles published, it was about 20 odd years ago now, where they couldn't ascertain if that was his real name. They were interrogating him. MI5 were interrogating this guy, and they were not even sure if that was his real name. They weren't even sure what country exactly he came from. We believe it was Algeria, but he spent time in Afghanistan. This guy is the real deal when it comes to jihad, this guy. And why on earth would we be letting this guy out? And as well, Chloe...
They haven't made the decision yet. We must have on him.
But
on the other one they have.
They shouldn't even be considered.
Shouldn't even be considered. Do you think we have to have a little look at some of the parole board or some of these people that vouch for them? Because there is a thing called taqiyya, isn't there, amongst certain harder aspects of the Islamic faith, which is that it's OK to lie in order to further your Islamist agenda.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, here you go.
I mean, they are well-trained liars. As someone who is planning serious attacks like this, these are very well-trained individuals. I'm sorry, but if they sit in front of a parole board and say, "Oh, I don't believe in my jihadi ideology anymore. I'm all converted. I'm not going to commit an attack," it seems like they just believe them. I mean, that's the impression I'm getting from all of these terrorists that are suddenly being let out. They can't just believe them if someone sits in front of them and says, "Oh, yes, I've been to the classes. I'm no longer an extremist." I mean, this is a serious national security threat. And also, we need to be looking at cases like this and thinking, and what happened last week, and thinking about how do we prevent attacks like these happening. This is someone we're talking about here who came on a lorry. Why aren't we treating what's happening in the Channel like a national emergency and actually seeing it as a major security threat?
Yeah.
There could be more people like him coming into the country as we speak.
Well, again, it comes off that revelation last night, doesn't it? Many people watching this now might have been watching it this time last night. It appears as though we've got a member of the Afghan National Army, Special Forces in Afghanistan, who seems to be running a people smuggling operation across the English Channel. The guy from Luton, though, was homegrown. He was from Luton, who then converted to Islam and became very, very radical. That in itself indicates another problem that we've got, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, I would hope, and I have confidence that the parole board are not naive, perhaps not naive in the way that people with less experience, like those, vicars who were testifying for people who went on to try and commit hideous crimes. I'm thinking of the incidents in Liverpool, for example, who were just naive, and I think where there were examples of people lying about their faith to try and, to try and forward their case. So I hope that the parole board, who is quite sophisticated, and will take that into account, and that they can see through people who are more obviously saying it for the sake of it. That's my hope. Obviously, I hope I'm proved correct, because otherwise we'll be in trouble.
Actually, Matthew, it goes back to something you said. I don't believe the parole board are naive, and I do think they have great level of experience. Their job is hard. The problem is they're responding to the rules as they are. So when Matthew says politicians shouldn't be involved, you're correct. On a day-to-day basis, of course, they should be correct. But what politicians need to do with speed is change those rules.
Yeah, I agree.
So that the parole board can behave differently, because these are not people who are gangsters, who are selling drugs or whatever. These are people who, in many cases, trained with a deep ideology that they were prepared to murder over
and die for.
And that's look, you can't persuade most people to change football teams. Forget ideology. And I tell you something now. I love Formula One. I love McLaren. I'm not going to die for them. If I'm prepared to die for something, that would suggest that I'm not prepared to change the way I think. And we need to take that into account when we look at freeing these people. They're not ordinary criminals.
But this is why people are angry. It's one of the many reasons why people are angry, I think, Chloe. And people often talk, don't they, about, oh, God, Gary Neville, classic example, we need to stop using this divisive rhetoric. Do you know what we could do, Gary? Is we could stop releasing jihadis back into the same community that is still reeling
to radicalise more people
from an Islamist who has just tried to kill as many Jews as possible. I'll tell you what that community needs now is the possibility of the return of a bloke who wanted to smear rice in on as many cars as possible, douse it around, indiscriminately kill people. And then when the police officer attended his house, by the way, not by mistake, they didn't know he was there, they were there for another reason. They stumbled upon this guy and he just slaughtered a copper. You know, this is the last thing that community or any community needs.
I mean, I don't think that this guy should ever see the light of day. And I do get the impression, I know you folks say that the parole board, they take their jobs very seriously, but I do get the impression that they aren't taking these extremists serious enough. If you speak to people who actually try to keep people like ISIS under control in the Middle East, they'd be saying absolutely no way should you be letting an individual like this out. Why are we always being so kind to criminals?
Well, maybe he should have been given an indeterminate sentence.
And the other thing is, victims are treated like criminals and criminals treated like victims.
There's a mental health issue here. Imagine he was diagnosed with a mental health issue because he'd murdered someone. They wouldn't let him out. So why have they let him out just because he's
but he should be in Broadmoor,
he's supposedly a terrorist? This is a man who sat in his house and has decided to kill as many people as possible. There is a mental health issue there, and he is not safe for us to be around.
Well, look,